This has got to be one of the strangest origin stories in all of sports. It's the story of a championship team that, well, technically didn't even exist. It's about a bitter feud that ended up creating an entire league, and how all that chaos led to the birth of the iconic Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay, take a look at this. This is a photo of the team that won the very first Stanley Cup in the National Hockey League, way back in 1918. But there's a huge mystery here. This team had no official name. Their victory wasn't even engraved on the cup right away. Their whole existence was just a temporary legal fiction. So, who exactly were these phantom champions? To even begin to understand this team, we have to look at the absolute chaos that created them in the first place. This wasn't some team built for glory, it was a team built out of sheer, desperate necessity. So, the most important thing to get is that this team was never supposed to be permanent. Heck, the NHL itself was only planned as a one-year stopgap. The players were basically leased from another team, the Toronto Blue Shirts, whose owner was at the very center of a massive conflict that was about to tear professional hockey apart. And this really gets to the core of the whole story. The NHL wasn't founded on some grand vision for the future of hockey. No, it was founded because a group of powerful owners wanted to get rid of one very, very unpopular man. So on one side, you had the owners of the National Hockey Association, or the NHA. On the other side, you had Eddie Livingston, owner of the Toronto Blue Shirts. The other owners were absolutely desperate to get him out of their league, but there was a big problem. The NHA's own constitution didn't give them a way to just kick him out. So they came up with a pretty brilliant and incredibly drastic plan. It's like if you can't kick a member out of the club, you just burn the clubhouse down and start a new one. So in November 1917, the NHA owners voted to suspend operations. Just minutes later, they all went and formed a brand new league, the National Hockey League, and simply didn't invite Livingstone. He was left as the sole owner in a league of one. But this created a whole new problem. Sure, they'd gotten rid of Livingstone, but a major hockey league without a team in Toronto, Canada's second-largest city, that was unthinkable. Plus, they needed a fourth team just to balance the schedule. So what were they going to do? The solution, it turns out, was just as messy as the problem. They created a placeholder, this temporary team, that would somehow go on to achieve the impossible, all while existing in a state of total, absolute chaos. Just think about how unstable this team's situation was. They had no name, so the press just started calling them the Torontos. The players were caught in a legal nightmare. Many had signed contracts with both the exiled Livingston and the new temporary team. They were often paid in cash, week to week. And yet, somehow, on the ice, they were incredible. Against all odds, this nameless team just tore through the league. They won the second half of the NHL's first ever season, then they beat the mighty Montreal Canadiens to become the first NHL champions. And in the final, they faced the Vancouver Millionaires for the Stanley Cup, and won in a thrilling 5-game series. 1. The very first season of a league born from a feud, won by a team that didn't even have a name. It is, without a doubt, one of the most improbable championships in sports history. Now, you would think winning the Stanley Cup would solve all your problems, right? But for this team, the victory parade led them directly off a cliff. I mean, the ink wasn't even dry on the championship story before all that off-ice drama came roaring back. Eddie Livingston's wave of lawsuits just kept coming, and it became really clear that the temporary solution from the season before just wasn't going to cut it. So this led to another corporate maneuver. The owners of the Arena Gardens, who'd been operating the temporary team, formed a new, totally separate corporation, the Toronto Arena Hockey Club. This was basically a legal shield, designed to protect the team from Livingston's lawsuits. They were granted a permanent NHL franchise, and this new team became officially known as the Toronto Arenas. But the magic was gone. The team was just plain awful, finishing with only 5 wins. Key players left, attendance plummeted to just a few hundred fans a game, and the financial and legal turmoil was just way too much. On February 20th, 1919, the defending Stanley Cup champions simply folded and withdrew from the league, before the season was even over. But from the ashes of this champion-turned-disaster, a team would rise that would become one of hockey's most iconic franchises. After the collapse, the franchise was sold to a new ownership group for just $5,000. They renamed the team the Toronto St. Patricks, and that brought a much-needed sense of stability to hockey in the city. The team's evolution was incredibly fast. It started as the nameless Torontos in 1917, became the Arenas, then the St. Patricks, and finally, in 1927, they were renamed the Toronto Maple Leafs, the name they carry to this day. And this is really the key takeaway here. The modern Maple Leafs trace their official lineage not to Livingstone's original blue shirts, but directly back to that chaotic, nameless, temporary team of 1917. That Phantom Championship is the very first entry in the Maple Leafs' official history books. So, all this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a pillar of the NHL, right? Yet their entire existence is owed to a bitter personal feud and a bunch of desperate legal maneuvers. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most enduring legacies are born from the most chaotic of beginnings.